Tom Heaney Adventure. Tonight I'm going to set up my HILLEBERG Solo. It's one of the HILLEBERG red label tents, which is designed for all season use, but also with the lightest weight possible. The video today is brought to you from the Mourne Mountains in Northern Ireland, and this is Loch Shanna. So first of all, the poles are DAC poles, DAC Featherlight NSL, widely regarded as the best poles on the market. I have them just assembled here because there's no point in showing you how to do that, but very briefly, it's a good idea when you are snapping them together that you do it slowly. Make sure the pole is fully inserted, and if you stay low it just keeps you out of the wind. I think also when you're up high and you're working with the poles, they're more inclined to snap together of their own accord rather than you actually doing it. One of the principles of HILLEBERG tents is actually ease of use, and the key thing in ease of use to me is actually pitching the tent. This is so important if it is windy. Now if you're looking at the tent at the moment, you can actually see that it's pegged out, and no matter how windy it is, the wind will just blow over the tent, and that is a tremendous feature. I've had a lot of tents that have been very, very strong, but they've been really, really difficult to pitch. And in relation to pitching this, all that I'm actually doing now is clipping the clips to the poles and actually building the tent from the ground up. And it's still protected if it is extremely windy. And the idea as you're doing this is to go around the tent in a sort of a circular fashion, just so that the clips are pretty much at the same height whenever they are clipped themselves, and that just really keeps the tension even on the tent. So it's very, very fast. In relation to this ease of use, you can do this at night, in the dark, in howling wind and rain or snow with gloves on, because these clips are actually so easy to do. Okay, the first thing I'll do is chat about the actual design of the tent. The tent is technically a semi-geodesic, and that means it has 3 pole crossover points. Quite difficult to see, but the crossover points are actually here, here and here. For the tent to be fully geodesic, it has to have 5 crossover points, and HILLEBERG classified, I think, as a freestanding and dome tent, but it is certainly semi-geodesic. So looking further at the design, the tent is not symmetrical. This end here is actually narrower than the far end. There's not that much in it, it's probably like a couple of inches. That serves a number of purposes. It makes the tent more aerodynamic from this end, and saves a little bit of weight because it's narrower. And also when you're lying in a tent, when your head and shoulders are at the far end, then you've got a little bit more room, headroom and space. The tent also, from this end, is quite narrow, and then it's a bit difficult to sort of explain, but from here to this transverse pole, the tent actually gets a significant amount wider. So what's really sort of happening is, as you're looking at the tent, it's narrow in a point and then it gets wider. So what happens is the wind will hit the tent tail on here and be dispersed down the side of the tent. So that just makes it very, very aerodynamic. Alright, and then looking at the tent just from side on, it is quite hard to see, but the tent really from here, from where I'm standing, my hands are, and down, it's quite vertical. So that gives you quite good room in the tent, but then it quite quickly goes horizontal. And again, that represents a really, really good wind profile and makes the tent very, very aerodynamic. And this pole here, the transverse pole, being over the top of the 2 longitudinal poles. When this pole is over the top, it's quite easy to clip these clips here, if you can see, and also quite easy to clip these ones. But when this pole goes underneath, it effectively then, because this pole is now underneath this one and underneath this one, it then pushes, if I can show you, it pushes these poles up. And it makes these two clips here very, very hard to clip, because this pole now is much further away from the fabric at this point. So I hope I've explained that, but that certainly would be my take on it anyway. So I'm not sure how well you can see this, but the fabric here has like it's like a rubberized plastic sort of polymer type fabric here, and this is like a reinforcement, and this just runs right the whole way down the tent. So this, instead of the clips here on a lot of other tent manufacturers, these clips and their attachments just go directly into the fabric, but these clips are attached here onto this band, and this band then is attached to the fabric. So this just disperses the stress very, very, very evenly, and makes the tent then just really significantly stronger. So this outer fabric on a tent is a fabric that HILLEBERG call Cairlawn 1200. It has a 12 kilogram breaking strain. The fabric is coated with silicone, pure silicone on both sides. And what actually happens is the silicone is absorbed into the fabric, and that allows the fibres in the fabric to actually stretch or slip slightly, and that's what then makes it really, really strong, that little bit of extra elasticity in the fabric fibres themselves. It allows the fibres to bunch together under stress and gives the fabric a lot higher tear strength. It's not just HILLEBERG that say this. I mean, other companies such as VOD, for example, who I think are a German company, they say that it makes it up to 6 to 8 times stronger. Another company, an American company called Slingfin, also discuss, and it's certainly widely recognized that double silicone fabrics, that's fabrics on fabrics with silicone on each side, are actually much, much, much stronger than combination fabrics, and that's a fabric that would have silicone on one side and maybe a PU or plastic type or polyurethane coating on the other. Just looking at a close-up of the seam here, HILLEBERG uses a technique called a flat fell seam. What that actually means is that the fabric is folded back on itself, and each stitching goes through 4 layers of fabric. This just makes it much, 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 much stronger. Not only this, the needles that HILLEBERG use have water jets on them, which keeps the needles cool, which reduces friction. This then just makes sure that the holes in the fabric are as small as possible, and that just serves to make the fabric or the seam itself very, very waterproof and also extremely strong. I always carry extra guyline with me, so that enables me just to have more flexibility with the pegging out options. So I mean, here you can see just where the strap ends, just in the middle of the camera, and then I've just extended that out with a spur guyline, and the peg there is just buried in the grass. You can't really see it very well. HILLEBERG talk about a number of details that's kind of, I suppose it would be like the HILLEBERG difference. Some of those details, for example, would be reliability, durability, strength to weight ratio, ease of use, etc. One of the other ones is in fact comfort, and I'm sort of in a position now where I can talk about maybe some of the factors that that make the tent, more comfortable. So what's really, really good about this tent is that the total volume of interior space is just absolutely perfect. In my opinion, much bigger, and it's heading towards a 2-man tent. So it's good room for one person and all their gear, and it allows you to be able to work and do things inside the tent if you actually need to. So for example, particularly when you use the ground sheet protector and you take the door here just right back, you have tremendous volume actually inside the tent. And now one of the other things that HILLEBERG categorise their 4-season tents by would be their fly sheets come right down to the ground. So just behind my rucksack here, the fly sheet goes right to the ground, and that gives a tent protection from wind, splashbacks of rain and snow and spindrift. So it also gives you just generally really, really good shelter. So I have this whole volume of area in the tent that I can do things like I can get organised in the morning after my camp, or I can get set up, for my camp itself beforehand. So comfort-wise, from that perspective, really, really, really good. I suppose in contrast to that, one of the things I've always said about this type of tent is that because the inner is suspended from the outer, then the fabric on the inner of the tent is actually quite loose. Now that loose fabric does flap around more so in the wind than what a tent would do with pitches inner first, for example. But I have to say, for me, the benefits far outweigh the negatives, because the way that this tent is set up is phenomenal, and it's just so easy to do, and I don't think you'll ever be able to get that on a tent that pitches inner first. So I suppose there's forwards and against to everything. So one of the other features of a tent to make it comfortable would be good ventilation, I suppose, to avoid condensation. All of these tents, I think the red label tents have at least one vent, and the vent is just under here, just if I'm reaching up underneath this hood, which protects the vent, and it means that you can vent the tent pretty much under any conditions. I think that you have to really work against condensation, and I see lots of videos of people up in their tents, and they're doing everything in the tent with the tent here, with this tent door practically closed. Now, certainly you should always pitch the tent tail into the wind, because that's the narrower, more pointy end. The ports then just gives you really, really, really good protection. And certainly so far, I mean, I've maybe only had a tent about a month, but I've always been able to work in the tent and be able to have it maybe not just as open as this, but open to some extent to just reduce the condensation and obviously increase the airflow. So for added comfort, the tent actually has just a couple of little mesh pockets here. These are just up at the, I suppose, the head of the tent, and they're handy just for small items that don't weigh too much weight. So I think really all in all, if I was to give this marks out of 10 in respect of the comfort of the tent, I would probably give it about 8 out of 10, just losing a couple of marks for the inner tent fabric not being that taut and just flapping a bit more in the wind. So another area that you could judge a tent on would be its durability, and that's really, I suppose, how long it will last and stand to the test of time. So this is the fly sheet fabric at the moment that we're looking at. And it is a 30 denier double silicone fabric, that is, it's silicone impregnated on both sides. That makes it very, very durable, and there is no doubt that the industry, I would think, is pretty much agreed that that is the best fabric on the market. The pole sleeves here are made of 100 denier nylon. That just means that the sleeves themselves can withstand the slight movement of the poles inside the sleeves during high winds. It also means that when you look at what you're attaching the guyline to, the guyline that has 80 kilogram tear strength is attached to nylon webbing, which is then attached to 100 denier nylon fabric. That is extremely strong. If you look at other tent manufacturers who maybe just have the guys attaching somehow onto the main fabric that I'm showing you here, the thickest main fabric that you get in most tents is 40 denier nylon. So the other fabric that's used in the tent is the ground sheet here, and this is a 70 denier fabric, so it's actually quite heavy, making the ground sheet material very durable. Some other competitors would actually have in their 4-season tents 30 and even right down to 20 denier fabric, which certainly gets the weight down, but it just cannot achieve the same level of durability. HILLEBERG feel that this is the best and one of the most durable fabrics on the market. The other aspect of ground sheet durability would simply be the hydrostatic head, and that is how much water pressure is needed in order for water to come through the ground sheet itself. The hydrostatic head on this fabric is 15,000 millimeter, and that is actually very, very high. The best I've seen in some other manufacturers would simply be 10. Over the years,
due to wear and abrasion and folding and packing, etc., etc., the hydrostatic head will diminish. So if you start off at 15,000, in so many years' time, that's going to be, I don't know, 10,000, 12,000, but it still is really, really high. If you start off with a hydrostatic head that only is 10,000 or 7,000 or 5,000, in a number of years' time, that's going to diminish, and it's probably going to leak. So for durability, I would give this tent 10 out of 10, because I genuinely don't feel that it would be possible to make it as durable without sacrificing weight. The fabrics used on the fly sheet of the tent, the fabrics used on the inner, the floor, the poles, they all are the best fabrics on the market, so you couldn't make the tent any more durable. So I would definitely give it 10 out of 10. Alright, something a little mod that I've done to the tent, just to make it a wee bit more comfortable. And all I've done is here, I have attached a guy-line, which you can just see here, just down to the zipper. And when I tighten that, it really doesn't need to be tightened very much, but it just pulls the inner just out a fraction. Gives it a wee bit more tension and gives you a little bit more space on the inside, with very, very, very little tension needed to do that, so it's not really putting any pressure on the zip at all. I've talked a fair bit about the comfort of the tent, and there are a lot of little features on it that make it very, very comfortable and I suppose adaptable, just depending on different conditions. I've got a little bit of a wind coming sort of from where the camera is at the moment, so from this direction, sort of blowing past me. And what I've done is I've just used the zipper on the bottom of the door there, so you can take back either side, either this side or behind me. And I've just adjusted that, so it's given me that little bit of shelter. And then this is just the mod that I'd done earlier that I had mentioned to you. So just a little bit of tension on that. You can see it just pulls this in and out and just gives me a little bit more space on the inside. And as I said before, very, very little tension. So that's me really finishing the reviewing, part one, or the reviewing that I'm going to do this evening. Tomorrow I'll review a few other aspects of the tent, and I'll also talk about it in relation to two of its competitors. One of those would be the MSR Access 1 and the Terra Nova Southern Cross. And also I'll be giving you some details on my free giveaway. I'm doing a free giveaway just to sort of increase my number of subscribers to my channel. So we'll talk a little about that in the morning as well. So thanks for tuning in so far, and tomorrow morning I'll see you and we'll talk a bit more about this tent. Alright, good night. Good morning. I had a great night's sleep last night. The last night that I was out in my tent I had 60 mile an hour winds, so I didn't have any sleep at all, so feeling a bit fresher this morning. I said last night that I would talk about my free giveaway, and this is it here. It's a black diamond spotlight headlamp, 160 lumens, rated to IPX8, and it weighs only 54 grams, and it will run for 28 hours on the maximum 160 lumen. So all you need to do to enter for the draw is make sure you're subscribed to the channel, like the video, share the video, and let me know in the comments that you have actually done that. Okay, I'll be doing the draw next week, and you can just watch a quick video to find out if you're the winner of this black diamond spotlight headlamp. While I'm here, I just want to do a couple of shouts. First one is to Adam of AMC Outdoors. Adam's another wild camper like myself, also uses a HILLEBERG tent, although I'm afraid it is green. But anyway, Adam's out and about a lot at the moment, around these summits, which I'll show you. He's usually camping on them. I think I had enough of summit camping for a few trips after my last episode. So have a look at his channel. That's Adam from AMC Outdoors.
And also have a look at the work that Seamus and Petra are doing from Outdoor Inspiration. Seamus has a lot of experience with polar travel and also with search and rescue, and is doing great videos at the moment on outdoor gear, stoves, backpacks, tents, all the rest. So well worth a wee look at Seamus's channel there as well. That's Outdoors Inspiration. Alright, I said last night that I was going to talk about two other competitors' tents. I've picked the Terra Nova Southern Cross one and the MSR, keep forgetting the name of this, the MSR Access one. Okay. Both of them tents have a similar sort of design in that they have a transverse pole across here, and then either one or two longitudinal poles. The HILLEBERG obviously has two. Both those tents have a single pole that comes down the middle of the tent to like a pole hub that's about in and around this height, and then this pole hub divides into two separate poles and goes down to the ground, you know, here. So I'm obviously in favour of this system because you have two poles as opposed to one. The two poles are obviously stronger than one pole. The two poles here are actually also quite close together, so that adds to the strength. And the two poles additionally maintain space and height along this flat surface. When you have one pole, or if I call it maybe a spine, and it comes down, the side of the tents then are immediately dropping off, so you lose internal space. Now I'm not sure of the pole diameter on the MSR Access 1, but I know the Terra Nova Southern Cross has a pole diameter, I think, of 8.6 millimeters. Now again, when you look at HILLEBERG tents with 9mm poles and the stronger ones with 10mm poles, that does make a difference. So the poles there are actually on both of those tents, certainly in my opinion, will be that little bit more, flexible. The fabrics, certainly on the MSR Access, I mean, this is a 30 denier fabric. The MSR, I think, is actually 20. You know, so it's a lot lighter, the fabric. And the ground sheet fabric on this tent is a 70 denier, and on the MSR I think it again is only 30. So that just makes a big difference to the durability of the tent, certainly in my opinion, and how long it will actually last. Both of those tents, due to different fabrics and pole configuration, are significantly lighter. The MSR I think is coming in close to 1,300 grams, and the Terra Nova tent, the Southern Cross one, is maybe about 1,700 grams. Also though, as far as I'm aware, with the MSR tent, you don't get a full allocation of pegs. So once you start to add in a few pegs, you will definitely need to use a footprint, which I do use, but you don't need to use on this tent. Then the weight actually starts to creep up. Alright, just to sum up my review on this tent, I've rated it kind of in a number of different categories, and I'll just very, very quickly summarise those again. So the durability of the tent, I would give it 10 out of 10, because I don't think you could use any lighter fabrics or stronger fabrics or any better poles. So to make a tent any more durable, you're going to have to seriously add weight. So durability, I would give it 10 out of 10. Ease of use, I've already discussed the setup and hopefully shown you the setup before, and the setup is just incredibly easy. I've never ever had a tent that is anywhere near as easy to set up. So for ease of use, I would also give the tent 10 out of 10. Comfort, I said, I think maybe 8 out of 10. Just really because of the inner, the way that it flaps around. If the inner was just a little bit tighter, I mean, that would just be amazing. But lots of other good features for comfort as well. Lightweight, again, 10 out of 10. I don't think you could make the tent any stronger and keep and maintain the weight.
because again, the poles are the best on the market, the fabrics are the best on the market, and the weights of the fabric I think are absolutely perfect for this type of tent. So they would really be the key things. I mean, the other thing is obviously strength. And again, I don't think you could make this tent any stronger without adding extra weight. And indeed, HILLEBERG are actually going to do that. They're releasing the black label version of this tent next year. So it's going to have 10mm poles, the Curlon 1800 fabric. But it should probably have a heavier ground sheet and slightly heavier inner fabric as well. So it will be stronger, but it is actually a little bit heavier, and it's just really up to you and your personal choice. The reliability of the tent, again, is second to none. I've had this tent out in 60-mile-an-hour winds, and it stood up certainly a lot easier than what I was standing up. So I think it's a great product. I've had many tents from different manufacturers, and certainly so far, I'm the most pleased with this tent that I've ever been with any tent. So thank you for watching my channel. If you're not really into tents and the detail of tents, you probably won't have watched it this far, but hopefully it was a video for you if you did. So until next time, I should be out fairly soon again, maybe back out on a summit then next time. Thank you for watching.